soon do we have self-driving cars in mass production?
I think we're at least a decade off, because there's a lot of other pieces in the eco that have to, kind of fit. Like, for instance, if an autonomous car, kills somebody, who's really liable? Is it the potential driver? Is it the company? Is it the manufacturer?
Is it the software developer? Right.
Absolutely.
Get into the cryptos and the values. You got Bitcoin, you got all these alternative coins, Ethereum, and there's, thousands, there's new ones every day. And then there's ICOs, and then there's people that say, Bitcoin's going to 100,000, and there's people say Bitcoin's going to 0, and then you got these ICOs, which some of them seem legit, and some of them seem like they're really like pump and dump scams, where people are just trying to get some quick money. Like, what do you think, Mark? What's your view on that?
It's a remarkable phenomenon. We're in year 1, and first year $6 billion. Second year, just after 4 months, we're at $20 billion. I'll say very openly, as an investment thesis, that I believe it will reach $1 trillion by 2025, just at the pace it's growing, just because it's so compelling as a representation of early stage equity. Now, what's happening is couple things. Number one, you have a lot of scams, for sure. And number two, people do contortions with utility tokens, etc., to sort of, avoid the security laws in the United States, at least. I'm a big believer of the ICO phenomenon as equity representation. I even think we need a new platform to do debt representation, like municipal debt, things like that.
You have an ICO, but these ICOs, as far as I understand it, by at least in the United States, you cannot have an equity-based ICO, or you can, I guess, but then you're not really in the SEC's jurisdiction, and so people have avoided those, and so you have these token offerings, right? But then, and what's puzzling to me is like, who's buying these ICOs when you're not getting equity in the company? It seems really risky, because you're giving money to the company. The company could go to the moon, but you don't have any equity in the company. So what's the point of being, you've got the token, but whether the token takes off or not, that's debatable. I mean, why are people doing it?
I don't know.
You don't know, you just know they're doing it.
I don't know. Everybody's doing it. I don't know.
You want the cynic's point of view?
Bitcoin.
My opinion, for what it's worth, is that there's a big FOMO going on, a fear of missing out.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it.
So much of that, it seems like there's no real rationality behind it, but people are feeling nervous. And I've heard this actually talking to a big-time Japanese investor, that in Japan, people are going crazy to get into all these ICOs because they're worried that they're going to miss out. And regardless of whether or not there's much credibility behind it.
Do you think the Japanese have even more FOMO than Americans? The only time I ever hear about anybody paying for anything with Bitcoin has been like, the Atlanta just had the ransomware attack, and they locked up all their computers, and they asked them for $50,000 in Bitcoin, which we all know, by the way, Atlanta, you paid. So don't try to tell us we don't know. If we're gonna, maybe we paid, maybe we know you paid. Okay, so you paid, and
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, you didn't know this happened?
Yeah. I knew it happened. I didn't know they paid.
Oh, come on, they had to pay. What are they gonna do? They didn't. Okay, so there's 3 factors: trust, high security, the encryption, and then the tokenization incentives to get people to use the platform and reward people for using the platform.
Yeah.
But when I'm thinking about payments, so so we know that there's this kind of underworld that's using it to pay for these kind of things like ransomware. But who else is doing it? Because it seems like, especially today, where the value is so volatile, it could be 9,000 one day, it could be 15,000, it could be 20,000.
Yeah.
So it seems like it would. I could see where people are storing value and holding it, but what's it called? Hodler, right? So Steve, who's using it to pay for stuff?
So we have all kinds of businesses that do everything you can imagine, all the normal types of payments that you can imagine people do. They do on using Bitcoin and other tokens as well. But So, I mean, we sell a couple houses a week. We also sell cars. We have auto dealerships. We have video games, video game platforms. We have a lot of stored value platforms where, think of an iTunes-like thing where you have a balance and you need to load value onto that. So Bitcoin is a very safe way to load value onto a stored value platform. It just eliminates so much of the fraud and the risk of fraud that it's a very safe way, very safe instrument to accept and to load value onto stored value platforms. So a lot of our customers fall into that category. We have a whole lot of international business-to-business supply chain type of customers. So think of one customer paying in China, wanting to pay their supplier in the United States. We have a lot of examples of that. So it runs the gamut. I mean, every kind of payment we do on our platform.
So people aren't worried about
And by the way, every cup of coffee purchase, people talk about, well, this stuff doesn't scale. You can't put every cup of coffee on the purchase on the blockchain, and I beg to differ. You can put every single cup of coffee purchase on a blockchain. You just can't necessarily put them all on the same blockchain.
Okay. The blockchain technology we talked about earlier was created because there was this distrust, and they wanted to take the trust away from a central authority like a government or a bank and distribute it among the participants of the network, right? And put the trust in the technology and the encryption but as over time, as we get more regulation, more big players, you look at the people who are starting to get into blockchain technology. It's Amazon just got in, IBM is in, Microsoft is in. The governments are starting to get into. The governments are starting to get involved, and this is a little bit like the internet. Like the internet was designed to be this decentralized network, and in the early days of the internet, it was everybody had their own website. It was mom and pop, and everybody had their presence, and then slowly that's consolidated into these big players, the Googles, the Amazons, the Facebooks, and I remember asking somebody recently, I think they were from Brazil or something, and say, "Do you have the internet?" And they're like, "Yeah, we have Facebook." And it's like the internet was consolidated into these central services over time, even though it had this similar, kind of democratic ambition in the beginning. And I feel like that was this, with blockchain and Bitcoin, that was the original purpose. But now you're getting these big players kind of co-opting it. And ultimately, I wonder if we end up in the same place.
Yeah, trying to co-opt it. I don't think they've done it yet, so we'll see.
Right now with crypto, one of the problems I think is that it's a little, for the average person, even for technical people, it's a little complicated. It's complicated to keep track of in your wallet, and it's like you're supposed to get your private keys, and you can't store it online. You got to get your cold wallet, your cold storage, and if you lose it, then it's gone forever.
But did you use email in the 1980s? I mean, it wasn't nearly as convenient as it is today.
Right. Well, I think about it kind of like pre-Mosaic, the first internet web browser, when the internet was really, it was early internet. And the average person didn't know anything about it. It was just purely academics and scientists and computer science people that were using all command line, and there was a mail, you used mail, and you used all the FTP and used all these services disparately, and you had to know command line interfaces.
Remember Gopher?
Yeah,
I do.
And so then. And then 95, 96, whenever the first internet browser comes on, and all of a sudden everybody discovers that the internet, and it made it easy to use. It made it user-friendly to the average person.
Yep.
The difference is today, because of Bitcoin and the craze and the FOMO and the rise and the value, everybody's aware of what's going on with blockchain, but it's in a pre-Mosaic, pre-easy to use phase, and everybody's trying to figure it out, and it's really complicated.
But the thing is also, Edwin, I think we are now, so we're in this phase where we're conditioned to the smartphone, we're conditioned to that user experience.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case 20 years ago.
True.
Everything was new. So now we expect that level of convenience in everything. So that's why, to me, key management is still such a big issue, because in a world of edge computing, in a world of mobile smart devices, we have key management that is kind of like doing command line interface. and it's really not consumerized.
That's right.
So you go in there and you have these great concepts, but to get it to the critical mass and to really grow it, it's not the experience that I have on my smartphone.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big issue. I think there's a kind of a dichotomy in that, and that's not necessarily the same as 20 years ago, because 20 years ago we didn't have these conveniences. We really, in many cases,
You didn't have a 17-inch screen in your car.
Precisely,
A touchscreen. Where do we need to? What needs to happen to get to the point where crypto is user friendly to the masses?
I think a lot of what Jim's saying is right. It's focusing on that identity management, that identity. Fundamentally, Bitcoin is an identity system, right? You have cryptographic keys issued that people generate, and they're used to author. That's what the system and the network and the consensus rules use to validate that whoever's creating this transaction is authorized to do that, right? And but managing those keys is still a problem, and making that easy for people to do and do reliably.
I think it's beyond just humans. I think that so much of, like, this car is a good example. You could easily have blockchain-enabled transactions between pieces of software. Like my car, why wouldn't my car have some kind of a Bitcoin transaction going through the express link, as an example?
Yeah.
So machine to machine. So we have to think key management, not just humans to machine, but machine to machine. APIs to APIs. And I think it gets, again, when you look at it with that kind of a scope, we're nowhere near that. We're nowhere near the ability to be able to have something that reliably works, interoperably works at that kind of scale. And I think, to me, that's the catalyst. That is the, and I think a lot of people, are doing some interesting things, but I'm not sure if they're looking at the full spectrum of interoperability in the world that really, much of us, many things are going to be automated, and many things are going to be autonomous. So it's really software. It's one API talking to another API.
Wait, so quick prediction. Bitcoin, end of the year. What is it? Price?
I hate this question.
Yeah.
Just pick one, isn't it?
20 grand.
20 grand, okay, 20.
I'm going to be a skeptic. I'm going to say around 7.
7.
15.
15. I'm going 6,900 just to be
Whoa.
right under. What's up? Hey guys, that was a lot of fun, man. That was really, Jim, thanks
I've
for
been enjoying it.
that was
A lot of
really
fun.
great.
Yeah,
Like, the Ludicrous mode was really a fun time.
Lots of
The autonomous driving. Mark,
Always a pleasure.
always a pleasure. Steven,
Edwin?
hey, this has been.
Thanks
you
for
know what?
joining, Jim.
I have so many more questions though still, so we're gonna have to do like a part 2 crypto if you guys
All right.
don't mind. We'll get together again. And this is just the beginning of the story anyway, so there's a lot's gonna change. But
Absolutely.
but hey, I had a great time with you guys today. Thanks for being on Techrides.
Thanks.
All right,
Let's do it again.
let's do it again. All right.